All right, so we'll have a question for Dr. Craig first.
You are arguing from a Christian perspective, but couldn't most of your arguments, really the ones, except for the ones that deal with Jesus, also argue for a polytheistic point of view, or universe?
I don't think that they would be consistent with a polytheistic view, but I think they would certainly be consistent with other monotheisms. For example, take the first argument about a cause of the universe. It seems to me that Occam's razor will shave away these additional deities. Occam's razor says don't postulate causes beyond necessity. You're only justified in positing as many causes as is necessary to explain the effect. So this will give you a creator of the universe, but it would be unwarranted to postulate a number of them. So I think my arguments would be consistent with Islam, Judaism, certain theistic forms of Hinduism. In fact, the first cosmological argument is actually an argument that was developed in great sophistication in medieval Islam, medieval Islamic theology, and some of its most prominent historical proponents are Muslim theologians like Al-Ghazali and Al-Kindi, for example. So I have a great appreciation of them. But where I differ with these other monotheisms is when it comes to the historical person, Jesus of Nazareth.
Well, about all I could add to that was I wouldn't have taken Dr. Craig to be arguing for polytheism at all. I kind of assumed that I was just plain off the topic. But anyway.
Question for Dr. Williamson?
Yeah, Dr. Williamson, I was just wondering if, considering the complexity of life, specifically the complexity of the human body, don't you think it takes more faith to believe that all of this just happened by chance than to believe that a mind went into the creation of it? Did you want me to repeat that? Or?
Pardon me?
Yeah, considering the complexity of life, specifically the complexity of the human body, don't you think it takes more faith to believe that it all happened by chance than to believe that a mind went into the creation of it all?
Well, I guess I simply wouldn't bring faith into it at all. It seems to me there's some good theories, evolution, for example, out there that tell us all kinds of interesting things about the complexity of life. Frankly, rather than faith in a creator for life, I find it more fascinating to think that all of this came out of some very basic principles working over a long period of time.
Thank you.
And I get a counter response now?
Yep.
Okay. Any improbability in the origin of life or the origin of the human body or the origin of consciousness just layers on more improbability to the improbability that's already present in the fine-tuning. So to support the questioner's point of view, consider this from John Barrow and Frank Tipler's book, Anthropic Cosmological Principle. They list 10 steps in the course of human evolution, each of which is so improbable that before it would occur, the sun would have ceased to be a main sequence star and incinerated the Earth. And yet all 10 had to occur. They calculate the odds of the evolution of the human genome to be between somewhere between 4 to the negative 180th power to the negative 110,000th power, and 4 to the negative 360 power to the 110,000th power. I mean, these are inconceivable numbers. So that if evolution did occur, I think it would literally have to have been a miracle and therefore evidence for the existence of God.
Sorry, Garrett, is there any room for replies?
If you want to, I mean, discussion.
Okay, don't let me, nobody's at my mic anyway, so. Oh, sorry.
Nobody.
Sorry, you're not close enough to the mic. I'd just like to comment. I mean, Dr. Craig, it seems to me you're using probability as an analog for impossibility. And then I think you commit the gambler's fallacy. You seem to be suggesting somehow that a long shot is something that takes a long time to come about. But it might have happened at the very first instant. It is a very long shot, for example, for me to win the lottery, but I might win at the first ticket I buy. Now, the gambler's fallacy is assuming that there's some connection between the odds for any given instance and and the length of time over which you're doing it, such that typical gambler's fallacy suggests if I'm flipping a coin and I get 9 tails in a row, a head is certain next time. Well, that's not the way it works. The fact of the matter is we're here, and that indicates that that distant probability, whatever big a number you want to put on it, occurred.
Well, it may not indicate that it occurred. It may indicate that there's a better, more probable explanation than that inconceivably improbable event actually took place. So we can't reason simply from our existence to saying, therefore, the improbable happened, because that may cry out for some other explanation of how we got here, like some sort of a guiding intelligence.
But probability doesn't get you there.
I think that the analogy, at least with respect to fine-tuning, isn't like the inverse gambler's fallacy that you mentioned. Because the correct analogy is not, for example, a lottery in which anybody's winning is equally improbable, but somebody has to win. It's more like a lottery in which billions and billions and billions of black balls are mixed together with one white ball. And one ball is going to be randomly chosen from the mix. And if it's black, you'll be killed. If it's white, you'll be permitted to live. The experiment takes place, and lo and behold, the white ball rolls down the chute. Now, what should you conclude? In a case like that, you ought to conclude that this wasn't random, this was rigged, because whichever ball rolls down the chute is equally improbable with any other ball. But whichever ball rolls down the chute, it is overwhelmingly more probable that it will be black rather than white. And that's the correct probability reasoning here, and it doesn't commit, I think, this gambler's fallacy.
Well, I'm going to let you get on with it now.
Yeah.
Right, so we could probably discuss all the questions forever, but we'll limit it. I think we will stick with the sort of 2-minute, 1-minute reply just to keep things moving. So I'm going to read from some cards from the overflow right now. So this is a question for Dr. Craig. This says that Dr. Craig used the mathematical thought problem of the Infinity Hotel and its ludicrousy. However, isn't that exactly how theists view heaven?
Okay. Let me try to explain, I think, what the questioner's getting at. Don't theists, or Christians at least, think that heaven is eternal life and that therefore this is infinite? There'll be an infinite number of years, say, in heaven. Here it's very important that we distinguish, I think, with respect to time, the difference between the past and the future. The past is actual in a way that the future is not. When we talk about time going on forever or eternal life into the future, infinity there is merely a limit which we endlessly approach but never arrive at. It's not as though there will ever be an infinite number of days that one has lived. Rather, it's purely a limit concept, like you've probably seen in mathematics where a curve asymptotically approaches an axis and gets closer and closer, but it never gets there. Infinity is just a limit. That's the way it is with the future. But with the past, you see, or with Hilbert's Hotel, there the infinity exists in actuality, not merely potentiality. So you need to discriminate between an actual infinite, which is what I'm arguing against, and a merely potential infinite, which is always finite, but just endlessly increasing toward infinity as a limit, but never arriving there.